Hey hon, I'm Chloe, and this is the Jamilla or Apprentice tutorial. My mission here is to share my passion for pole dancing and make pole dancing easy to learn and accessible. This is the 20th video of the intermediate pole trick tutorial series. In order to maximize your training out of all the videos, I highly recommend you to start from the very first video of this playlist, as the tricks will be a progression of the video before. The Jamilla or Apprentice is a very versatile trick that can be used for different tricks and also transitions as well. We'll have 2 different entries today, from the floor and from a sit, and we'll have 5 different leg variations. The prerequisite of this move is to be able to do a split grip Jamilla tuck, so make sure you watch that video before you start this. This video is mirrored for your ease of learning. I'll have a red wristband on my right wrist and my right ankle to indicate the right side of my body if you do get confused of the directions. This video is created for you for informational and educational purposes only, and for you to enjoy learning pole dancing from the comfort of your own home. Please participate at your own risk and don't work beyond your capability, and seek help or spotting when necessary. For any health concerns, please make sure you seek professional medical advice. Ensure to warm up your body before you start this video. I have a warm up depending on your level under each playlist so that you can try it before you do the tricks. If you enjoy this video, please make sure you give it a thumbs up so that I know to create more of these kinds of videos, and consider subscribing to my channel if you haven't yet so that you are notified every single time I upload a video. If you're looking to further your pole journey and combining tricks and dance together, then consider subscribing to my online learning platform, Pole Art Vault, where you'll be learning tricks and dance together and learning an entire routine combining dance and combos. You can find the link in the description below for further information. Alrighty, without further ado, let's get into the Jamilla or Apprentice tutorial. Alrighty, now let's get into our conditioning. Now, before we start with our conditioning, I do want to mention that if you are looking to further condition your body for this move, I also have some other videos that are going to be very beneficial for you. So before you do this, try watching the baseball grip Jamilla tuck video. You can also check out the carousel video, which is going to help you with the split grip that we're about to work on, and also the split grip Jamilla tuck, which is the prerequisite of this move. So having said that, we're going to add another 3 conditioning exercises for today. Now let's start off on the floor, and we're going to try it's almost like a reverse plank. So coming onto your knees, and feel free to grab a yoga mat if you need to protect your knees. Once you come onto your knees, we're going to come onto our fours. Now, once you come onto your fours, make sure that your hands are stacked underneath your shoulder and your back knee is stacked underneath your hip. We're going to start flipping the grip so that your fingertips are facing towards you. And see if you can feel a nice stretch through your forearms and also through your wrists. Now, if you're finding this extremely strenuous on your hands, then you can start turning your hands slightly to the side so that your fingertips aren't directly facing towards you. So instead of your fingertips this way, just slightly turn it out and see if you can start handling that load. Now, once you start to find a little bit of strength through your wrist, we're gonna see if we can take both our legs back into a plank. So I'm going to make sure that my hands are stacked underneath my shoulders, 1 leg at a time. Shoot my right leg back, tuck the toes underneath. Make sure you're tucking your tailbone in, engaging your core before you start taking your other leg up. And see if you can just rock forward and backwards very gently at your best range of motion. To come out, 1 knee at a time, and gently coming out, and shake your wrist off. Well done. Now again, for this conditioning, if you feel like your wrists were taking a lot of load, feel free to start turning your hands a little further away from you so that it's turning out. Now, let's move on into our next conditioning, our side plank knee tucks. So for this one, we're gonna come down onto the floor using the pole. So in terms of our positioning, we wanna start off with our hip or inside hip nice and close to the pole. So just make sure that the pole is sitting right where your hip crease is, and we're gonna start grabbing the pole with our outside hand just around shoulder height. Now from there, you're gonna take your other hand down onto the floor so that your hands are stuck underneath your shoulders. Now see if you can take both of your tummy onto the pole first. Take your outside leg to the side, so same leg as the top hand, and then your other leg to the side. Now we're gonna start tucking the knee in, so think about really squeezing the pole through your inside leg. Pull the knee towards your chest as much as you can. Make sure that your stomach and your hip is on the pole, and then you're just gonna take it back out into a plank. And then coming down. Now, a few key pointers here. If you're finding that the bottom hand that's on the floor is really tricky for you to hold, feel free to take your hands a little bit more to the side, because that's gonna stabilize your positioning a little bit better. Now, the other thing you can also do is, instead of taking both of your legs into a plank, you can start so that your hip is aligned and both of your knees tucked in. And this is gonna help you stay a little bit more balanced rather than taking your legs out to the side. So this is your regression version. Take your other hand a little bit higher. Take your hand that's on the floor a little bit further away. You're gonna tuck your knees in, tummy on the pole. See if you can take both of your legs up or just one leg. Well done. Now let's try this on the other side. Jetty. Jazzy. So we're gonna align our hip to the pole, so your inside hip on the pole. I'm gonna try the progression version, which is the one that we wanna work towards. So I'm gonna get my outside hand just around shoulder height, so the opposite leg that's on the pole. I'm gonna take my other hand down to the floor just behind. Make sure that you're leaning towards the pole, and then get your tummy around so that you can stack your hand underneath your shoulder. So you should have a lot of stomach grip right now, and then also your hip grip. I'm really leaning my chest and my stomach into the pole. See if you can take your outside leg to the side, into a plank. Your inside leg, keep your tummy on the pole. Tuck your inside leg in. See if you can take the other leg in. Step out, then coming down. Well done. Now, if you're feeling really strong, then see if you can try 3 reps on each side. And then we're gonna move on to the next and last conditioning. Now, our last conditioning is our split grip small hops or mini hops. So we're starting in our split grip position, which is our top hand nice and high, bottom hand nice and low. So you just wanna create a pull through your top hand, pushing away with your bottom hand. Now, in terms of your hand positioning, just make sure that you're not overwrapping that top wrist. If you're grabbing the pole, you should be able to see this V on your side. So this little tick, you should be able to see that directly in front of you. Now, the other hand, making sure that your wrist is facing up and your index finger is right in front of you. Now, see if you can pull through your top hand, push away with your bottom hand. You're gonna jump your leg forward past the pole, and then you're just gonna jump your leg backwards. So essentially, I'm pulling and lifting my legs up, and then see if you can pop your legs forward past the pole. Now, in terms of this positioning, if you feel like your wrist is starting to hurt, just make sure to check that wrist. Commonly, I see a lot of overwrapping of the wrist, or your index finger starting to turn. So just make sure you're really pushing through the bottom hand and pulling a lot. The other thing with the split grip is that sometimes there is a tendency to forget about pulling a little bit more through the top hand so that you're alleviating the bottom hand push. So just ensure that you're pulling a lot through that top hand so that you're not putting too much pressure in that bottom wrist. So actively pull through that top hand, push away with your bottom hand, extend through your arms, jump your legs forward, jump your legs back, jump your legs forward, jump your legs back. Perfect. Let's try this on the other side. I'm gonna come onto my toes. Inside hand comes nice and high. Be able to see that tick of your hand. Bottom hand comes into a pistol grip. I'm actively pulling through that top hand. Push away with that bottom hand. See if you can lift your leg up. Pop forward and pop back. Pop forward and pop back. Good, last one. Well done. So there is your 3 conditioning done for today. And let's move on into our Jamilla and Apprentice. Alrighty, now let's get into our Apprentice or Jamilla. Now we're gonna try 2 different entries as I mentioned earlier, and we're going to try 5 different leg positions or leg variations. This is what a Jamilla or Apprentice looks like. First leg variation, second variation, third, fourth, and fifth. Alrighty, now let's break that down. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the prerequisite of this move is to be able to do a split grip Jamilla tuck. So please make sure that you've watched that video before you do this one, because I'm not going to be breaking down anything to do with the split grip Jamilla tucks and the technique for that. So you're going to start off in your split grip Jamilla tuck first. So just remember that you need a lot of lower abdominal area grip and also your upper thigh grip. I just realized there's a bit of shaving cream on my leg. So just make sure that you've got a lot of grip around that area and obviously through your hands. Now, once you tuck your knees in, you're going to start rolling your legs slightly out to the side. So initially, you're turning your chest towards the pole, and then from there into your full Jamilla, you're gonna start turning your chest slightly away from the pole, but not fully. Alrighty, so I'm gonna get my outside hand just around shoulder height, inside hand at knee height. I'm gonna step in with my outside leg, so the same leg as the top hand. I'm lifting my inside hip nice and high, so bending through that inside leg. From there, I'm just gonna roll over towards the pole into my tuck. I'm gonna start taking the other knee up into a straddle, keep pressing that leg towards the pole, and then into the full straddle. To come out, I'm gonna bend the leg again, turning that knee into my Jamilla tuck, step down with my inside leg first, then outside leg down to the floor. Well done. Now let's try this on the other side. Now with the other side, I'm going to show you a regression version that is going to help you achieve the ultimate version, which we did initially, if you were struggling with that version. So instead of starting with our outside hand low, we're going to start taking that outside hand a little bit higher. So you can start off with your split grip nice and far this time instead of the outside hand at shoulder height. So from here, I'm gonna step through my outside leg, so the same leg as a top hand. I'm gonna start lifting that inside hip up. Make sure you get the hip crease onto the pole, and as I turn, I'm going to start sliding that top hand down to the floor. I'm gonna take that leg out into a straddle, then into the full straddle. To come out, tuck that knee back in, step out with your inside leg, then your outside leg. Well done on that one. So there is your full split grip Jamilla or Apprentice. Now, the other 4 is gonna be a variation of a Jamilla. Now, let's go through the first one, which is a stag leg. So the stag leg, the positioning is very similar to a front stag or a back stag that we did way back in our beginner pole trick tutorial series. It might have been a while. So essentially, when you're in your stag, once you come into position, you're going to split those legs, and you're just gonna think about squeezing the glutes and then just lifting the toes nice and high. So all you're doing is from a knee tuck, just splitting those legs and then coming down to the floor. Now, next one is our split. Now with a split, this is probably the harder variation of all the variations that we're working on today, because you obviously kind of need to squeeze both of your legs into a split. Now I'm just gonna go on the other side just to even it out, and make sure you do both sides, because sometimes when you're going through some moves, this is gonna be a transition move and you might like one side, and then when you go into a next move, you might end up on your good side or the bad side. So always do both. Now, I'm going to come into my tuck. Once I come into my tuck, the bottom leg is going to extend forward, and then the top leg is gonna shoot back. And I'm looking down to the floor or over my shoulder. So there is your split version. Again, it is a lot of work through the legs. So just make sure that really split the leg, look over the shoulder, and that's gonna make that split line look really nice. Now let's go through our last two variations, which is one leg bend, one leg straight. So these legs are obviously interchangeable. The easier one is the bottom leg bent towards you, then the other side. So once I come into my tuck, I'm just gonna pull that knee even more towards me and extend that back leg. And then I can swap so that both my knees are tucked in. And there you have it. There's all of your Jamilla variations. Now let's go through our aerial entry. So we're gonna try a Jamilla from a sit position. So you're gonna start in your scissor sit. We're gonna start leaning forwards until our inside shelf or your side is on the pole. You're gonna start leaning forward, slide that outside end down into a pistol grip. Then we're gonna turn our body towards the pole, threading that outside leg in front of the pole. Then you're gonna open up into a Jamilla. So I'm gonna start from a sit. So you can either do a climb into a sit or you can pull up into a sit. This is obviously up to you. Alrighty, so I'm gonna do a mini climb so that you can see. A mini climb into a sit. Now once you come into your sit, just make sure that you are getting your inside shelf or your side on the pole, and I'm leaning forward, scissoring the leg as much as I can. From there, lean forward so that you can start reaching your outside hand down into a pistol grip. Lean as much as you can. Then from there, this outside leg is gonna thread behind. I'm gonna tuck my knees in, slide that top end down, and then you're gonna open up into a straddle. Well done. So there you have it. There is your aerial Jamilla, or a sit into a Jamilla. Alrighty, now let's go through some tips and common mistakes. Now the first common mistake is the positioning of your legs. Now let's just try this from the floor if you felt like the Jamilla or getting into it is a little bit tricky. So if you remember when we did our split grip Jamilla tucks probably a few videos ago or a while ago, we try this from the floor so that we can really solidify the move and also the positioning of where you should be in your Jamilla. So we're gonna take it all the way down onto the floor, and same thing as the conditioning we did before, we are going to get our hips to align to the pole, so our inside hip to the pole. Now from there, I'm just gonna take my outside hand onto the pole, other hand down, same thing, and then I'm just gonna start sitting so that I'm in my split grip Jamilla tuck position. So you can see right now that my stomach, my lower abdominal area is on the pole, and I'm tucking my knee towards the pole, and you should feel a lot of squeeze through your lower abdominal area to your thighs. Now, if you don't feel that, then think about grabbing your knees and pulling that towards you until you feel that grip. I definitely feel that. Now, from there, all I'm doing in this full Jamilla is that I'm going to start taking this leg out to the side, and you're essentially going to do a straddle from there. So if you don't feel any grip on your top of your thigh here and your hip joint, that is a problem. Make sure that you're pulling that knee towards your chest as much as you can so that you feel all the grip necessary. Now, the other thing that's important in terms of your grip is that you have your lower abdominal area exposed and your hip exposed. If you are wearing shorts, this is gonna be really tricky unless you are extremely strong and you can hold your hands on the pole without any skin grip. So for myself, you can see that my lower abdominal area is like fully covered, but it is because my hands are relatively stronger that I can hold myself up. So if you feel like you're not strong enough right now, and obviously you will build that strength the more you do it, make sure that you expose that lower abdominal area and your hip so that you can get all the grip that you need. So that means you're probably gonna have to tuck your shorts up, maybe wear something a little bit more exposure so that you have all the grip necessary in this area right here. So let's just try that on the other side to even it out as well. So I'm just gonna sit on my side so that my hip is aligned to the pole. Grab the pole with the outside hand. I'm gonna start leaning until my lower abdominal area and my upper thigh is on the pole. Now from here, I'm gonna start turning the knee out into a straddle. Pull those knees towards you as much as you can into a straddle, and then open up. Perfect. Well done. So try remembering that and just remember to keep working on that before you start it up on the pole. Now the next tip I have for you is the positioning of your grip and the change. Now, commonly, people think that in your Jamilla or from the Jamilla tuck into the full Jamilla, there is no grip change whatsoever, but there actually is a change of the grip. So what's happening from your tuck into the straddle is that I'm rolling from the front of the thigh and then onto the side. So you can see that there is relatively grip change from rolling on the front of the thigh onto the side of the thigh. So just remember and keep that in mind when you're in your Jamilla. You should be feeling it right in your hip and not in the front of your thigh when you come into the full Jamilla. Now the other option in terms of your entry, rather than going into the tuck, is going straight into the Jamilla. So instead of just tucking both of your knees, you can just extend that bottom leg as you roll. So you can go from your knee bent, roll onto your side, and extend that leg. You can see that I'm rolling on the side of my hip. So just ensure that you feel a little bit of that roll and that there's no problem if you feel like the grip isn't just solid from the get-go, because you're gonna have to roll into it. Now, the next common mistake is your hand positioning. Now, as we've gone through both the progression and regression, you can see that the regression version, my hand is extremely high. And there's no problem doing that in the beginning, but the easiest way to execute moves is less grip change or less sliding. So initially you can start off with your hands very far, but ultimately the easiest way to get into your Jamilla is to have your hands already in place of where you want to be in the end of the move. You can see that if I want to execute this move nicely, I'm not going to slide my hand. I'm always going to keep my hand exactly where it is, and I'm just going to bring my hip a little bit higher. So in order to do that, you want your hand at neck height or shoulder height. This is going to depend on anatomy, and the bottom hand just around knee height so that I can hitch my hip up and both my legs are going to be directly in between both of those hands. So this is going to be extremely crucial if you want to work towards a very clean Jamilla. So make sure that your hands are already in place, and again, make sure that your body is right in between that top hand and the bottom hand. Now, the other common mistake that we tend to have is the bottom wrist taking a lot of load. Now, this is going to incur either some sort of acute pain in the bottom wrist, or you can result to maybe minor or major injury. So please make sure that you are very, very careful with that bottom hand when you're in the Jamilla. We have a lot of tendency of using a lot of the bottom hand push, depending on the person. So if you feel like your bottom wrist is taking a lot of load, first step is to ensure that you're pulling a lot through that top hand. Make sure that you're not overloading that bottom wrist, pull a lot. Now the second one is ensuring that your positioning of your bottom wrist is neutral. Now, a lot of the times I see people overwrap their wrist forward. So just ensure that your wrist is directly facing up into the ceiling and your index finger is right in front of your body. So this should be at the center of your body. Now the other thing to know is ensure not to press too low or bring that bottom hand too high, because if that's the case, then you're gonna end up sort of like pressing a lot through that wrist and you're gonna overload that wrist. So a good indication of your bottom wrist placement is from your elbow to your hand in one line. So you can see from the side that my elbow to wrist is one line, or even the shoulder to wrist is one line. If I'm here, you can see that there's a bend through and it's not straight. So just ensure that you're creating that sort of push, and always work on your exit. If you do not exit nicely, sometimes I do hear people feeling a little bit of pain through that bottom wrist in the exit portion of it. So if you feel like you're one of those people when your exit, it's always just your exit that hurts, make sure that once you finish your Jamilla, tuck it in, pull through your top end and then step down so that you're not overloading that bottom wrist. Make sure you're turning your chest into the pole and then pull a lot through the top end and then stepping down. Now, if you have an hyperextended elbow like I do, you also do want to make sure that you're not hyperextending through your bottom elbow. This could load your elbow a lot, and over time, this is not gonna be great for your elbow and your ligaments and your joints. So just make sure that you keep a slight microbend through your elbow if you do have hyperextended elbows. Now, as I mentioned earlier, grip is extremely crucial for the Jamilla. So make sure that you have enough hand grip on your hands. I always need something a little bit chalky and tacky for my hands, depending on the pole. And obviously, if you need any grip advice, please let me know in the comments and I'm happy to help you. The other thing I find is that if there is a big temperature difference between the pole and the room, then you're gonna have a lot of condensation through your hands or your pole. So just make sure that there's less gap of a temperature between your room and the pole. If the pole is really cold and the room is really hot, doesn't really help, vice versa. So temperature regulation is extremely crucial. The other thing to know is, again, you need lower abdominal area exposed and your hip exposed if you are doing your Jamilla. So just make sure that all that spot is all exposed before you do the Jamilla. Now, the other common mistake is tipping back too much. Now, this is another one where people kind of slip out of. When you're doing your Jamilla, you're not trying to turn your chest away from the pole, because as soon as you turn your chest away, you are gonna lose a lot of that hip grip. So just make sure that when you are tipping out, you're not tipping your chest away from the pole, but you are still turning your chest towards the pole and you're just opening that top leg out to the side. So again, keep your chest still aligned to the pole. Initially, when you're going into it, you are turning your chest down and leaning forward. So you can see that I'm going side, leaning forward until my stomach is on the pole. But when you are turning out, I'm turning slightly out, but I'm just tipping slightly backwards. I'm not fully extending that top arm. I'm only just rotating from the leg, and try not to open up your chest. Your chest is almost an ancillary to your legs moving out into a straddle. So just elaborating on that top hand grip, you can fully extend your top arm when you get into the full Jamilla, but you can also keep a micro bend through your top hand. This might be depending on your anatomy and a lot of different factors. Just make sure that when you're in your full Jamilla that your hand isn't like super high. If you need to initially, yes, you can, but your full ultimate Jamilla, your top hand should be just around eye height. Now, next common mistake is the straddle positioning. Since the Jamilla, your full traditional Jamilla is your straddle. Now let's again try this from the floor. When you are doing your Jamilla, you are trying to tuck your knee towards your shoulder. So this straddle is a pancake straddle and not a middle split straddle. So for those that don't know what a straddle is, you're bringing both of your legs forward and you're taking your legs out to the side. This is not your full middle split, and all you're essentially doing is just leaning forward in that straddle. You do not have to be extremely flexible to be able to do a pancake straddle. You can just kind of come into a straddle and then still get the full Jamilla. But if you do want a very nice line, I do recommend you to stretch your pancake straddle. So again, from the floor, I'm trying to tuck both of my knees towards my shoulder. I'm externally rotating that knee and then extending out to the side. Now let's talk about beautifying the Jamilla. This is extremely crucial. Rather than just keeping your head still, make sure you're looking towards that top leg or over your bottom hand shoulder. This is just gonna ensure that your Jamilla looks much nicer. The last tip I have for you is the bottom leg or the hip grip. Now, when people hear the word hip grip, they think that as long as the hip is attached to the pole, it's doing all the work. Not necessarily. So the hip is doing a lot of the work, but the driver of this should be through your entire leg that is pulling towards you. So remember that if you feel like you're sliding out of it, one of the reasons is because this bottom leg is not pulling enough towards you. So just remember, try doing a few conditioning exercises before if you feel like your bottom leg still isn't working, and try this from the floor, but just make sure that you're extending that bottom leg, pulling that leg towards you as much as you can until you feel that grip in the front of the thigh, the top of the thigh, and also through your hip. And this is all your tips and common mistakes. So I have a little story time and motivational tip before I let you go today. Now, I had a coaching student of mine recently that was feeling a little bit discouraged because they weren't feeling like they weren't getting any of the moves. Now, this is extremely common, and even for myself, I have some days where I have really good training days where I'm feeling extremely inspired, I'm getting all my choreographies done, I'm coming up with new moves, and training is just going so well. My grip is great, you know, it's just one of those days when you're gonna have like really, really good training days overall. Now, other days, I have terrible training days where I'm sliding off the pole, I'm dry sliding, but I'm super sweaty on the palms, and just even my body grip's not working, hand grip is not working, I'm not feeling inspired to do any choreography, I'm just having a terrible training day because I'm feeling really stiff. Now, you're never gonna have training days that are consecutively good, and that is just life. I think that the beauty of life and also pole is that you have days where everything's going well and some days not so well. Maybe some days you're gonna have a neutral training day where some things worked and something didn't. And I just wanted to give you a little reminder that it's okay to have terrible training days. Because you have bad training days doesn't mean that it's gonna be that way forever. And sometimes I have tricks that I've been training for years and suddenly I just forgot how to do it. And I think that is totally fine. And you know, like Jamilla is another move where it's not gonna be for everyone either. You might find that it's not great for you now. You might have a little bit of pain, whatever. Please let me know, I'm here to support you. All I just wanna say is I'm always here for you if you need that help, and I'm here for you to help you with your pole journey. If you feel like you're struggling, you're not by yourself. And I'm here to encourage you as well because I've been there, I know what it feels like, and we're all in this together. Thank you so much for joining me in the Jamilla or Apprentice tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it, and I shall see you in the very next tutorial. Bye! Yes? Yes. Is it needy time? Yes. Do you want to film with me? Yeah, okay, you can stay here.